1943, Henning Prentice Jr., who was a successful businessman in Pennsylvania, said this in a speech in New York. Again and again, after freedom has brought opportunity and some degree of plenty, the competent become selfish, luxury-loving, and complacent. The incompetent and the unfortunate grow envious and covetous, and both turn aside from the hard road of freedom to worship the golden calf of economic security. The historical cycle of democratic governments seems to be from bondage to spiritual faith, from spiritual faith to courage, from courage to liberty, from liberty to abundance, from abundance to selfishness, from selfishness to apathy, from apathy to dependency, and from dependency back to bondage. At the stage between apathy and dependency, he said, men always turn in fear to economic and political panaceas. New conditions, it is claimed, require new remedies. Friends, I don't know where America is, but I believe we're at the closing stages of that cycle that Mr. Prentice talked about. I believe that we are witnessing, if something does not happen, the death of a once wonderful, liberty-giving republic. We are here today because we have been drawn together from events that have been happening over the last many years, but recently over the last few years. We're going to break down today that opening to the Declaration of Independence, and I'm going to speak for just a moment about when in the course of human events. Many people wonder what's wrong with the government. What's wrong with Supreme Court justices? What's wrong with our federal court system? What's wrong with the federal government? What's wrong with the state government? Friends, I believe the problem is not there. I believe the problem is with the electorate. Having just run a primary race myself, I now understand the problem in America. People do not vote. The voter turnout just the other day was one of the lowest in Oklahoma history. Did you know that out of the 60 million self-professed evangelical Americans, half, 30 million, do not even vote? The vast majority of them are not even registered to vote. God says, if my people who are called by my name will humble themselves, seek my face, turn from their sins, then I will hear from heaven and heal their land. God is not waiting on the pagan. God is waiting on his people. Peter said the time is coming when judgment must begin where? Yeah, not at the White House, not at the courthouse, not at the schoolhouse, at the church house. Now, we're brought here together because of the events that are going on all around us. Friends, it is time that we strongly come together. You know, when they were signing that declaration, Benjamin Franklin said something to the others gathered around him that you know quite well. He said, men, we must hang together or we will most assuredly hang separately. Now, sometimes we say that and we think that Franklin was jesting. But friends, they were dead serious. Most of those men who signed that declaration actually believed that they were signing their death warrant. They understood the hatred that the British had for them. And they also understood, even though we look back and we see them as heroes and we see that declaration as one of the greatest documents ever penned by man short of God's Word, we look back and we admire those men. You have to understand, in their time frame, they were committing treason. They were rebelling. They could have very well been hanged and probably would have been had they been captured. Now, friends, where we are today is nothing new. We have been here before. I want you to listen to a pastor by the name of Samuel Sherwood and what he said in 1774. In a sermon, he said, considering our present critical situation, it would no doubt be our wisdom and our prudence to make up, unite, and gather into one common interest all the good Protestants in this land, notwithstanding lesser differences among them, that we may stand or fall together, and not be devoured one of another, nor become an easy prey to foreign enemies who may seek our ruin. Now, that was delivered in a message in New Haven, Connecticut in 1774. He knew then what I know now, that all of us if we're going to win this fight, must come together. The events that are surrounding around us and whirling around us like an Oklahoma tornado are drawing us together. I have noticed as a leader, as a conservative leader, that there's a lot of jockeying around for position and for the spotlight, and we want to be in charge of this and we want to be in charge of that. Friends, that must go away. We must come together. If we do not hang together, friends, we may very well hang separately. We must come together. Samuel Adams understood this. Samuel Adams, in a letter that he wrote in 1780 to a man by the name of James Warren, he said, if ever a time should come when vain and aspiring men shall possess the highest seats in government, our country will stand in need of its most experienced patriots to prevent its ruin. Friends, I believe that we are facing the very moment that Samuel Adams warned about. He was the voice of the revolution. Friends, that voice is crying out today. If my people who are called by my name will come to me. Friends, I'm telling you, there's some good people in this building behind me, but that building cannot solve our problems. There are some good people in Washington, D.C., but Washington, D.C. cannot solve our problems. We have such gargantuan issues facing us today. There is only one who can help us. This crowd cannot solve our problems. I cannot solve our problems. You cannot solve our problems. A president cannot solve our problems. Friend, it is time that America humbles itself and we seek the face of the one who birthed us to begin with. Without his aid, how could we ever expect to rebuild this nation? When the Constitutional Convention was deadlocked and they could not move forward, the great deist who didn't believe that God would hear and answer prayers, Benjamin Franklin, suggested that they should open every meeting from that moment on with prayer. He said, in the beginning, we prayed every day. Have we forgotten that great friend who saw us through? And so the deist who didn't believe in prayer and didn't believe that God would answer prayer said, I suggest, Mr. President, that every day we open these sessions with prayer. So they dismissed and spent 3 days in prayer and in church together. While all of the delegates were packing up, getting ready to go home in frustration, they spent a few days in prayer and in worship together. They came back together, and guess what happened? Voila, the Constitution of the United States of America. Now, what is the difference? It's what Franklin, the great deist, said. He said, can a nation rise without the aid of the one who knows every time a sparrow falls? He said, if we are attempting to build something without the God who has said, those who labor to build a house labor in vain unless they depend upon and seek me. Franklin said, how do we think that we could raise a nation without his aid? I am here today to tell you that we must, in common, look at our problems that bring us together, but then turn our heads upward, and we will all look to the same spot. The God who our forefathers sought, and the God upon whom they depended, who worked miracles. George Washington said at the end of the war to one of his generals, he said, you know, our posterity will never believe the miracles that we've witnessed. He said, unless they were here and they hear us tell about it, they won't even believe it. Friends, today, we, unlike the founders, are looking at things upside down. The founders were willing to sacrifice their prosperity for their posterity. What are we doing today? We are sacrificing our posterity for our prosperity. Friends, we better get this thing turned right side up, and we better look up to the one and the only one who can bring us together. Let's lay aside our differences. We can hammer those out later. I can link arms with you and fight for liberty. I can link arms with you and fight for life. I can link arms for you and fight for traditional marriage. I can link arms with you and fight for taxation with representation. I can do all of those things. We'll hammer out our doctrinal differences later. We must come together. In this course of human events, friends, we must speak with one voice and one